Hey everybody, Zach here at etrailer.com. Today we're taking a look at the PEWAG Snox Pro self-tensioning snow tire chains on our 2020 Nissan Kicks. These are going to be a good light-duty snow tire chain if you're looking for something for occasional use, or more than anything, just keeping something in there if you have that emergency or your state requires you by law to carry these during those bad conditions. Now, when it comes to having a light-duty chain, these aren't going to be those big aggressive ones that you may see on larger vehicles, but they still do a pretty good job of giving us traction. They're not as smooth as like a ladder roller style chain, but when it comes to chains, it doesn't matter what size you have on there, you're going to feel them. So I like that kind of middle of the road type thing, and that's what these are good for. They're small enough where it's not real rough and aggressive, but we still get a little bit of traction compared to the like small cable style. Now, a couple things that set this apart from others is it has this diamond pattern, and what that's good for is that gives us a little bit more tire coverage. So it gives us not only good traction in starts and stops, but also when we're making turns. So compared to the ladder roller styles, where those are only really, in my opinion, effective on starts and stops, you know, they'll give you a little bit on those turns, but this gives us more traction as we're turning and just overall better tire coverage. Another thing that separates these are the lack of tensioners that we need. So it's all built in, we put them in place and they're self-tension to give us a nice fit. And then we get this nice carrying case for it. So I like being able to throw my chains in a good case and keep them in the back. That way they're not loose and getting all tangled up and getting everything kind of gross. You know, some other smaller chains have just kind of flimsy bags that end up tearing, but this is made of a pretty good material, so I think this is a nice little feature they added on there. Now, when it comes to chains of this size and kind of easier to install chains, this isn't the easiest one to install. It's going to give you good traction, but I personally kind of like the Koenig CB12 tire chains for the Nissan Kicks. I've tested that out, and I got that put on so much quicker than these. The idea behind this is pretty simple. You just, you know, get it wrapped around there, and it should be easier. But I kind of struggled with this one. So I think that having something where we just make the connections up front, I don't have to reach around the tire as much, that's more of my preferred way of getting these put in place. But overall, they're not the most difficult. I don't have to get underneath, but they do require a decent amount of effort. So let's just walk you through how we put these in place. To get these installed, I like to have them laid out, just kind of make sure everything's okay. One thing I would suggest is try this out before you need to do it. So you get them, weather's not too bad, do them in the driveway or your garage. You don't want the first time that you're putting these on to be when you really need to use them. So get a couple test fits in. And what the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have these hooks facing the right way. So what we don't want is this part of these hooks to be facing to the tire. So there's a smoother side there where they've rolled those around on these pieces. So we want that smoother side on the tire. So I would just kind of turn it like this. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to unlock this. So I'll press that, pull it out, we're unlocked. So we can start installing this. The first thing we're going to do is drape this over. So once you have that in place, we can just start taking this bungee and just feeding it around to the back side of the tire. It's probably a good idea to keep one hand on it until you get it most of the way started. It takes a little bit of effort, so this is where I was kind of prefer that other style. And then the chains kind of get caught on themselves, so it just takes a little bit more effort compared to some other styles. And then we'll just kind of feed it around until we get wrapped around the other side. And then once we get this back here, we still have the front to worry about. So that's when we'll drive forward a little bit to get that to rotate where we can kind of feed it around more. Now, one thing this bungee wants to do once you get most of it back there, it wants to pull everything towards the back. And we don't want that. So Once we get a lot of it back there, we want to make sure that we're not getting caught on anything. And we want to just get this pulled more towards the front as best as possible. And then we can start driving forward to get this centered around more. Now once we've driven forward a little bit and it's kind of adjusted, you can see these are still pretty tight. Trying to get them on there, and now we need to lock this down. And that's where we just kind of make some adjustments there. And you can see this is pretty challenging. This is why I don't really like this style that much. I think that it's good in some applications, but I think it is, even though it fits the 205 5517, it is like, has to be perfectly placed on there. And I think there is much easier to install chains with the same quality of traction and quality of chain material. There you go. So I got it locked in place now, and we're good to go. You know, these little plastic pieces here are going to protect our finish on our rim. This was just a lot of effort to get this put in place. We're going to get good traction, but for me, it's not worth it on how much I'm going to have to put into getting these chains on. There are much easier chains to install, like those Koenigs we mentioned earlier. But if you like them, you like the style, they do work great, and I've seen them get installed on other vehicles of different tire sizes in a much easier fashion. But with this here today, it just was too much effort for me to feel like I would want to use these chains. If I owned this Nissan Kicks, I would go with those Koenigs instead. But that's going to do it for our look at the PEWAG Snow tire chains on our 2020 Nissan Kicks.